Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to go ahead and continue on with the month-long series of fragrances for the average Joe, or helping out the average Joe. As you can see from the title of this video is focused on helping you build your own fragrance collection. Now, a lot of things that I hear going across, and again, I want to point out to Bottom Note, who actually brought this up and really brought it more forward towards light, is there aren't that many people who can afford these huge fragrance collections. Some people just don't want to actually buy these huge fragrance collections, which is completely and perfectly fine. So this video is geared towards helping you build your collection with, kind of money constraints that are kept in mind, constraints that you don't have to have a huge fragrance collection in order to, smell good, smell appropriate for the right situations. It's basically an everyman's kind of fragrance collection, an everyman's guide to creating your own fragrance. So without any further ado, let's get started. It's not going to be a long video. I'm going to be short, quick, and to the points. I kind of eliminated some suggestions down to it, and you can go ahead and feel free to ask questions down below at the bottom. But, all right, so again, this is primarily for a lot of people who don't have a lot to spend on their fragrance collection. Sure, you may want to splurge and kind of buy, a good fragrance here or there or two, but in general, you're not looking for a huge sum. Now, if you recall, I had a video a while about where I basically asked, what do you think is your ideal collection for fragrances? Some people said 5, 1, 2, 3, 300, whatever. Basically, you saw a whole swath of ideas coming off. And the number that I came up with, an ideal number, is anywhere between 4 and 8 fragrances is really perfectly fine for anyone. These could be fragrances that are on the less expensive end. They can be fragrances a little bit more expensive. The key is covering certain scenarios and aspects of your life, and it really depends on you. And the reason why I say between 4 and 8 is, let's go ahead and start off. It's first, there's 4 really critical occasions that I think every man should be able to cover with their fragrance collection. The first scenario is the casual. That's basically wearing the fragrance, day-to-day situation. Whether it be you're going to the store, whether it be you're going out, you're just inside, you're just hanging out with people. That's basically the casual type of a fragrance. The second scenario is your work fragrance. Now, this is going to differ depending on who you are and how you work. Personally, I work in a corporate environment, so work to me, is usually business casual, can be business suited up if I have to meet with some clients or have an important meeting, or it could be just dressed down with jeans and, something like a sweater like this, or a dress shirt, something like that. That's what business means to me, or work means to me. Work can mean something else to you, if you work in a mechanic shop, if you work as an engineer, if you work in sales. Work can mean many different things. Work will mean what work means to you, but the important thing is covering that scenario with your fragrance, if you can cover it. If you're a doctor, your work and my work are completely different, as well as the expectations for how we should smell. All right. The third scenario is the date or the clubbing fragrance. I kind of smash those two together. The date fragrance is kind of when you really want to wear something sensual to attract the opposite sex. Now, in general, overall, you're probably going to want to wear something that's going to attract the opposite sex at all times, which is true, but you want that something with the extra oomph, with the extra kick, with that specific thing in mind. So that's the date and the clubbing fragrance that you can kind of pull off. That's the third scenario. And the fourth scenario is your upscale situation. Your upscale situation, suit and tie, whether it be someplace basically where you want to make your maximum sophisticated presentation to kind of come off and have that presentation. That's the fourth scenario, and the one that's a little bit out there. So those are the 4. Now, the reason why I say between 4 and 8 is because if you live in a climate, or if you live in an area that has extreme degrees of temperatures, I live in New York, it's very hot in summer and it's very cold in the winter. So if I was to, just have my collection based off of that, then I would have something simple, 4 fragrances for the summer, 4 fragrances for the winter. Now, not everyone makes that distinction, and you can get away with just 4 fragrances perfectly fine. Again, this is just what I think basically every guy should have, depending on where they live. Now, again, if you live in somewhere like Arizona or someplace that stays constantly warm, California, those type of areas, feel free. All you need is 4 fragrances. That's all you're going to be perfectly fine with. All right. Now, moving back a little, some fragrances can cover many different types of scenarios as well. All right. So one fragrance that you buy for casual may suit work just as fine. One fragrance that you buy for casual may suit both casual winter, both casual spring. Let's take a look at some. L'Eau d'Essai. This has been one of my favorites for a while. Not everyone likes this fragrance. Sorry about the light, but it's a little bit bright in here. L'Eau d'Essai Pour Homme. This is something that you can pretty much wear year round, right? It's sharp enough that in the winter it's going to cut through the cold air and people will smell you, and it's not as cloying enough or as pungent enough that it's going to overpower people in the summer or in the warm weather. So this can kind of mix and match and suit both scenarios. Something like Bleu de Chanel. Something like Bleu de Chanel can work perfectly fine for work, both in the winter, both in the summer. It can work perfectly fine for casual. You can cover casual type of a sense with this, and you can even cover, upscale type of sense with this. These are fragrances that kind of generally do well, no matter what scenario you kind of put yourself in. All right, so a fragrance like, if we take a fragrance like Bond Number 9's New Harlem, this is a little bit more on the upper end of the scale, but New Harlem isn't something that I generally wear to work, just because it's a little bit too sweet. It's a little bit too kiddie and childish. At least that's my impersonation of this fragrance when it comes on my skin. Because of that, I don't want to kind of give off that impression while I'm at work. Therefore, I avoid wearing something like this at work. This is, to me, is something like a night out, a winter date club type of a scent that you can wear. Sometimes casual too, stuff like that. That's kind of where I envision New Harlem. Of course, changes, expectations change over time. Sometimes your opinion of a fragrance changes over time, but these are just to give some examples. I can't really go through on each scenario and list off tons of fragrances, otherwise I'll be here all day. A fragrance like Platinum Egoiste is a fragrance that does extremely well for almost all scenarios that you can kind of imagine. So you can get away with buying one fragrance and mix and matching for that. Again, the important thing isn't the amount of fragrances, so to say, that you have. It's that you've met those particular scenarios that go out pretty well. Once you've met those scenarios, you're pretty much covered for pretty much the whole time. So you can mix and match all you want. You don't have to go too expensive. You can find fragrances that are cheap, that are on the cheaper end, that will suit just as well as the larger end fragrances. For example, Davidoff's Cool Water, as compared to Green Iris Tweed. There are a lot of fragrance comparisons that are always made. You can usually find cheaper comparisons. You don't have to go high end. Again, to me, the major thing is matching those scenarios that comes across. L'Homme is another fragrance that I usually L'Homme is another fragrance that I usually recommend for people if they're looking for a fragrance that is not as heavy, that does well in casual scenarios, work scenarios. This does well on date scenarios if you want, and even upscale scenarios. It's something that you can really mix and match and do well with. The key that I think you should do if you're looking for fragrances and looking at fragrance reviews from other type of reviewers is find out what may work well for multiple scenarios, mix and match. You don't have to have huge collections to smell well. Again, I just think you just need to match those 4 scenarios. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free, leave a message down below, comment, do whatever you got to do. Thank you, take care of yourselves, and have a great day.